Hi, guys. Welcome back to A Billion Realities. This is your host, Jessica. Today on the show, we have the CEO of Prince Marketing Group and author of a book called Aiming High, which revolves around his life as a celebrity sports agent while being addicted to opiates, Darren Prince. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Hey, thanks just for having me.
Thanks so much. I'm so excited to have you on. You're one of the most inspirational and motivational people that I know. So thank you for joining us today. I know you're busy.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while since we've seen each other. I miss you.
It has. I miss you
Always
too.
Great, intense, inspirational, and spiritual conversations about life and breakthroughs and just great energy. I wish the rest of the world thought that way and lived that life.
I fully agree. Couldn't agree more. So I met you in New Jersey, in your hometown, where you're originally from, obviously. So shout out, by the way, to all the great people that I met at the recovery event. But
Turning
where
point.
are you at?
Yep.
Yeah. What's the town called again?
Livingston, New Jersey.
Right. But where are you now?
Now I'm in West Hollywood, California, right outside of Los Angeles. That's where I call home.
Okay, great. How long have you been there?
About 2 years.
Okay, so you're adjusted. It's home.
Yep.
Excellent. So what was your childhood like in New Jersey?
I had an amazing childhood. Great parents. Sister grew up with. Mom and dad did everything they could to give us, great life, upper middle class, and whatever reason, it was nothing they didn't do, but I always had a lot of anxiety. I always felt a little bit uncomfortable. I had a lot of friends. Never feel worthy of being with the friends. If I had to sleep over a guy's house one night to have play date or something, I'd be homesick and wanted to go home the next morning or that night, and really no idea where those feelings came from, but just really didn't feel a part of. You would think from the outside that I was cool with everything and I loved my life, but just felt like a little bit of an outcast. I was classified with having a learning disability by my teachers and verbally teased by some of my friends, and I think a lot of that, I took with me for many, many years.
That makes sense. Yeah, that can trigger social anxiety for sure. So when was the first time that you actually remember, wanting to get high or actually getting high?
First time I got high was at 14 at sleepaway camp, and told the story 3 million times that I had really bad stomach pains, and the counselor took me to the infirmary, and this nurse, her name is Greta, she gave me this green liquid, and it tasted disgusting, and as I'm walking across the softball field back to the bunk, every one of those feelings I just told you about a minute ago went away. I became smart. I became good-looking. I became the buff one, the popular one, the talkative one. And I got back to the bunk, and all the guys were laughing with me. And it was just such an empowering feeling to be like the cool kid. And then 20 minutes later, I was still so lit up. I just left right through the front door, and I walked to the bunk next door around 25, 13-year-old, 14-year-old girls like me. And 2 or 3 of them that I had a crush on, I went right over to them, started talking. I'm like, oh, Darren, I've never seen you like this. You're so funny. And it just made me feel unstoppable and super, super confident that I could talk to anybody and do anything. And the next night I had no stomach pains, but I was lying in the bunk bed, the sky, just obsessing on that feeling that I needed more of it. And I learned to lie and cheat right then, and I looked over at the counselor holding my stomach, and I said, hey, man, I got to go back to the infirmary. My stomach is killing me. And I did that. It took 3 weeks because it wasn't as controlled of a substance back then, but when Mom and Dad came up for visitation day, they found that I was taking liquid Demerol.
Wow. How'd that go over?
Not well. Obviously, Mom wanted to sue the camp and went ballistic and blame the nurse, but I never blamed the nurse because 6 months later, my mom got to experience it firsthand at a dentist appointment. I got a wisdom tooth removed, and he gave her 8 Vicodins, and I didn't know what they were, but she gave me 2 right after the procedure, and that same feeling came right back. And I'm on the phone with my boys. I'm chatting it up, calling girls that I had their phone numbers that I had never had the courage to call, and just hours and hours of conversations, feeling unstoppable. And, a few days later when the pills ran out, I was devastated. And, again, I learned how to lie and cheat, and held my cheek and ran downstairs with the crocodile tears and told my mom I must have a bad infection. My tooth is on fire. And as a loving mother, who wants to see their child suffer? So she took me to the dentist first thing the next morning. And he didn't know what was going on, but he gave her another prescription for Vicodin.
Wow. That's intense. You go from...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's intense. You go from, social anxiety to a feeling of complete carefree, I can do anything on top of the world. And, yeah, of course you continue to want that. You can't even imagine the repercussions at that age.
No, and mom every once in a while will still throw out about the nurse. I go, Mom, I was also heavily addicted to anabolic steroids, and I had 3 procedures that were horrendously painful, called gynecomastia, and they're growths that grow in your nipple area, and I had to go in 3 times during the course of 5 years, and by the second procedure, she demanded to the doctor not giving me any painkillers because she knew that, and I was excruciating the pain, but I remember she just put her foot down. She realized, something's not right here with my son.
What? Oh, wow. So how old were you at that point when she started refusing?
I got my first gynecomastia surgery probably at 20, and then maybe 23 and 25.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that was a little bit later. So,
yep.
I mean, what was when is the first time that you remember feeling like I'm addicted? Was there a point?
It was probably my late teens, early 20s when I started my baseball card business, and it blew up, became a multi-million-dollar company. And I was so broken and so insecure that I wanted everybody to know that Darren Prince arrived. So it was always about the Rolexes, and I had the most expensive sports car at the time you could buy at 19, 20 years old. An Acura NSX cost me $150,000, which is probably the equivalent of a 19-year-old buying a $300,000-$400,000 car nowadays. And the flashy jewelry and the most beautiful woman I would have with me at the shows, multiple 2-3 women, like a Hugh Hefner of the industry, and I would always have to be high. I would always time it where there was a certain moment where I would take it because I wanted everybody to see that I arrived. I wanted to be, that hot shot, the one that everybody wanted to be with, talk to, do business with. And there was a time where I forgot my pills for one of those business trips, and I'm on the plane with 3 of the girls, and they're drinking, having a good time, and it came to me that I left my pills back in New Jersey, and the only thing that mattered, I could not leave for the show until I had a doctor make a house call to me at the Omni Hotel in Atlanta, Georgia, and I lied and did everything I had to do to let him believe I was having horrible disc issues, sciatica, and I wrote my prescription for 50 Percocets.
Wow. Okay. So you were heavily addicted then at that point. You couldn't even go without it. You would have withdrawals. Was that the case?
I don't say I had withdrawals yet because it was working back then. When I took it, I got zooted, and I think I realized it was coming to an end. As I said, it was once living to use turned out to using to live. When I started my agency when I was 25, and my first 4 clients were Magic Johnson, Chevy Chase, Smoking Joe Frazier, and Pamela Anderson, who probably were the most iconic names of all time. And back then they were in their prime. And same thing. So now I evolved from the baseball card business and these trade shows to being literally put at the front and center of sports and entertainment agency as this revered agent that had zero confidence the hell I was doing. But because they were so revered and so universally loved, I got the title as super agent. And it worked. Again, it worked for probably 5 or 6 years. And then I think it all started coming to an end 30, 31 years old. I wasn't getting the same effect anymore. I would have to take more just to not get what you just said, that detox feeling. And my brain and my receptors, my receptors just weren't getting what they once got, and I felt like I was losing my superpowers.
So how would you say that fame affected you as a person or your personal life at that, your rise to fame, I should say?
You know, a lot of people didn't realize how bad it was at the time. Some of the biggest game changers in sports and entertainment, you know, they had no idea. I remember I went to Noah Tepperberg and Jason Strauss, who are the biggest hospitality kings in the world. They own Tao and Lavo and Avenue. They've got them all over the world. And I came to them for a testimonial, and they were just so blown away. And they're like, you know, Prince, you would walk into a club, like our biggest freaking launch event, like 28, 29 years old. And I remember specifically, there'd be other celebrities like, oh, wow, who's this guy that just walked in? You just had a look about you, you had a walk about you, you had a confidence about you. The people wanted to be around you. They just gravitated towards you, and whether you're with your celebrities or not. So, you know, it goes to show you, you never know what's going on behind closed doors and what's going on in somebody's head, because I didn't feel worthy of any of that. I wanted people to see something from the outside, but I was so broken internally because I had no idea how it got this far, that I chased that feeling from sleepaway camp for the better part of 24 years later, until I wound up deep in hell. And, I had relationships, dated a lot of different girls and had a lot of girlfriends, and, everything would eventually just run its course. But it was I always looked on the outside with that too. It was always.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, it was always. I think we spoke about that.
Yeah, like how did it affect your relationship?
It's fun. It's, I want to say embarrassing, but it's kind of crazy when I look back. And look, people are physically attracted to each other, but that was always my first initiative. That was it. It was, how'd they look on the outside? Because I was so broken on the inside, I didn't care that much. Outside is the fact if I got somebody that was just loyal, cared about me. That was all that mattered. Right. And I got a reputation for it. There's still people to this day that talk about it. I was just telling Mathilda, who manages our social media and website stuff here, that when I look back during the course of all my relationships, and I think probably the best one that I had with somebody, without mentioning her name, I was 20, and she wasn't like a knockout, she wasn't like a 10, but something about her personality made everybody gravitate towards her. And I don't think I was in that stage where it was so much about look at me, look at my girls, look at the woman that I'm with. I was still kind of teeter-tottering over getting to really know myself. And like I said, everything was more or less, looking for an outside fix. That was an inside job, and look at me. And thank God I don't need to live that way anymore.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that. What was the turning point that you finally said, I've had enough, I can't do this anymore?
July 1st of 2008, I was married at the time to my wife, Simone, and it was as bad as it's ever been. I overdosed 3 months earlier in Las Vegas. Paramedics saved my life. I was just a complete misery. I was a shell of myself. I was on Suboxone, which is an opiate blocker, Klonopin, which is an anxiety pill, sniffing Ambien before I went to bed at night to go to sleep. I was on a mood stabilizer and an antidepressant. And I just didn't want to live. I would literally wake up at a multi-million-dollar life insurance policy and a booming business, and left half of it to her and half of it to my parents. And I think I just had to get to desperation on that July 1st, 2008 with some God intervention, because my uncle, who was in the 12-step fellowship and still is, and his girlfriend Andrea were visiting my mom in New Jersey. And I didn't know they were coming into town. They paid a surprise visit to me at my condo, and we literally had that weekend planned for me to go to a hotel and just do all the spa treatments I could and try to detox off the Suboxone. My office was behind it. They spoke to my doctors. They didn't suggest it. They thought I should go to rehab. And this woman, Andrea, that was dating my uncle, looked at me when she walked into my place. I was bloated, sweaty, probably 25 pounds heavier than I am now, and said, "Are you okay?" And it came right out. I said, no, I'm not. And she's like, what's wrong? And I told her. She's like, do you realize you're an addict and that your life's unmanageable? I said, for sure. She goes, do you realize that you're powerless? I said, yep. She goes, lastly, do you realize that addiction doesn't discriminate? It doesn't matter if you're from Yale or jail or Park Avenue or Park Bench. It'll bring you to your knees or 6 feet under, no matter what you've accomplished business-wise. And I said, I get it 100%. She goes, now, most important question, do you want the help? I said, I need it. I'm desperate. And she put me on a detox plan and said, if you follow what I tell you to do over the next few days, I could start showing you a life beyond your wildest dreams. And that's what happened. She detoxed in the first 36 hours. And on night July 2nd, 2008, I was in the gym in my building. I came upstairs and I was losing my shit and shaking, trembling, the chills, hot flashes. And I called up my uncle and I called her up. They were still in New Jersey. I said, I can't do this anymore. I said, I'm losing my mind. I'm going to call the doctor and get what I really need to get. And they start, yelling at me. You can't.
Of course.
You're in New York City. Go online, find a 12-step meeting. Tell these people you're sick, you're suffering, you're depressed, you need help. And I hung up the phone. I said, there's no freaking way. I don't understand those meetings. I wound up going into the bathroom and taking what I thought were Klonopin, which are more non-narcotic anxiety pills to help with the cravings, and out came a couple Vicodins, and I had no idea I had any opiates left in the house. We could have sworn we got rid of everything. And for a split second, it was amazing. It was like a gift from God. I was like, holy crap, it's exactly what I needed. And then there must have been some, inspiration in that moment, because the next thing I know, I fell to my knees, shaking, trembling, and crying, and literally yelling out for help. Like I've never wanted anything like this in my life. I said, dear God, take the chains off me. I need your help. I'm sick. I'm suffering. I'm disgusted of this lonely, double, triple, miserable life, and I can't do this without you. And something came over me. I had a white light moment, and I heard the voice, I've got you when you're ready, and I felt a burning sensation on my right shoulder. I'll never forget it. I still get emotional talking about it. And I stood up, and Jessica, that wasn't me standing up. And I opened my left hand, and I flushed the Vicodins, and I wound up walking into the living room, going onto the computer, found the 12-step meeting, and 15 minutes later, I'm in a taxi because there was no Uber back then, and I'm looking up at the sky with tears rolling down my face saying, oh, my God, time in my life I wanted to stay sober, but I wanted to get high. And I walked into a church basement with about 150, 200 acts and alcoholics, and looked around and put my hands up, and they said, is anybody new or desperate? And I had no shame. And, probably a dozen spiritual brothers and sisters came over to me, and they said, it's okay. We know what you're feeling. Stick with the winners. Let us love you before you learn how to love yourself. Take the cotton out of your ears and put it, right?
Yes, it's so amazing, because I've heard your story before, obviously, but I still get chills when you tell it, because it's so powerful. And I really do believe that, a higher power at some point will step in. It's divine intervention.
Yeah, and I found hope in that church basement.
Beautiful.
People sharing. Like, I heard people sharing, and for the first time in my life, I felt part of something. I thought I finally found people that understood me. And I just couldn't get enough of it. And my wife, my ex-wife, was with me, and she left after 15 minutes because she was so distraught. It was too painful. And she had a brother that was also suffering, who sadly took his own life 8 years ago because of this disease.
Oh,
and I stayed. And I heard, you got to put this before anything in your life, because anything you put before it, you're going to lose. Nothing's going to come before your sobriety. And I did everything they told me to do, 90 meetings in 90 days. I did service work. I found a sponsor Steve, Steve Delaval's, like, who you met at the Turning Point Gala, who was honored that night, who changed my life for the better in every single way possible. There's nothing it doesn't have an answer to. From, I went through a bad, broken engagement. It wasn't her fault. It was on me. I'm dating somebody now. I've got in and out of other relationships. He gives me the most serene, spiritual way to just live, to be the best Darren and take the focus off of me and understand them instead of me being understood. Where could you buy that? Nowhere. It's just incredible because you get he's like my own personal spiritual healer. And he used to tell me early on, you have no idea how much this is helping me. Like, what are you talking about? You're helping me a million times more. He goes, you'll understand one day, Darren, what I'm talking about. By you calling me and me reliving through your pain gives me such gratitude of where I'm at. And it's such a reminder of where I never want to get back to. And you too are going to have that power one day. And you're going to understand that you needed God in your life for so many years. But there's going to be a moment, I don't know when, as you do the step work and as you put yourself out there to the universe, that you're going to get a message from God that he needs Darren Prince.
That's incredible. Would you say that one spiritual moment triggered something that is still expanding today?
100%. It's still, even when I speak, I have to speak slower, and I did 57 speaking engagements last year because I feel it every time I talk about it. It's so raw and so fresh and I need that. I don't ever want to forget that feeling. I want to get emotional because I think it's a liability if I don't. Even coming up on 12 years sober, I got to do this every single day, one day at a time. I got to be on that beam, not around it. I got to be part of a fellowship. I got to be speaking to people in recovery. I got to be responding to random inboxes on Facebook, on Instagram, whoever out there needs help. I got to get out of my own way because, look, not every day is perfect. But I know I'm not responsible for my thoughts. I'm responsible for how long I think those thoughts. And that goes for every single one of us, especially with what's going on in the world. You could roll around in your own head as long as you want. You want to do it for 5 hours or 5 minutes and pick yourself up and focus on gratitude, change your perspective and your perception of what's going on in your life.
Absolutely. Just taking the time to, it's okay to feel it, but feel it and let it go, and then choose what you'd rather feel. So I really love that advice. I think that's amazing. I feel like your spiritual awakening is actually a lifelong journey, and I feel like that's the case for many people. But yours is a huge one because you're doing so much now in your recovery, after your recovery, and you continue. You haven't stopped. You're just doing more and more. And how has your life changed since getting clean and being clean, sober?
I mean, in every way possible for the better. I know who I am for the first time in my life. And it's tough, it could be tough in certain situations, certain business associates that don't understand that but respect it. If I'm in a relationship with a girl or whatever, sometimes I got to understand people aren't me. There's a lot of people that are closed off. I worked my ass off to get to this point, to not be smoke and mirrors anymore, to let the world think I'm somebody I'm not. And I want kids to understand that more than anything, and I want adults that are living the same life I was to understand you don't need to live this way. You, especially in the city of, excuse my French, more bullshitters than you could ever imagine in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Everybody freaking wants you to think there's somebody and they're not. Everybody. And what I do is I gravitate towards the one that tell me they're struggling. Because that's a rarity in this city. They're the minority. The ones that are, whether it's professionally, personally, financially, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. That's what I want because I feel it's my God-given service to tell them what's worked for me, even if they don't have a substance abuse problem. It's a way to live life. I'm part of the 12-step fellowship. I know we're not supposed to talk about it, but AA stands for attitude adjustment for me at this stage of my life. And people that know me, it takes a lot to freaking get me out of my comfort zone to lash out. When I do, it's ugly. And
okay.
I need to try to stay away from it because the 12 steps, then I got to practice the 10th one, continue to take my personal inventory. And when I'm wrong, promptly admit it. And the truth is, I get an emotional hangover when I get into that space, and it could last for days. And that's a dangerous place for Darren Prince to be.
Wow,
so I'd rather say what I
mean
what I say it mean.
Yeah.
Like my sponsor, Steve, taught me, try to understand instead of being understood. Look, I know I'm not a doormat, so you do a few things. I'm going to say something, but I'm going to try to say it the right way you can understand what I'm expecting out of you, whether it's a worker, a friend, a family member, a relationship. You know, you keep doing it, then I got to make a decision if that's somebody I need in my life. You know,
right.
Some of those people, if they're family, you got to keep them at an arm's length. Joel Osteen says, you know, you got to love them from a distance.
Yes.
You know, I need to see good qualities in people that are still caught up in their own head about the way that they're living their life. And I got a few of them in my life right now. I think everybody does. But when I see some hope and I see a moment, a flash of greatness, that trumps all the crap that I might have to deal with somebody, whether it's one of my boys or whatever, you know, because I notice I was like, there's a willingness for that second to make a change.
That's a beautiful quality in you, that you can see past, you know, all of the negatives and focus on the one positive that you see. That's a rarity, you know. It's hard to find people who will even do that. So I love what you said about
beyond a rarity. I mean, but that's also why I need to stay so connected, to stay on that path, because I know it's not easy at times, but
right.
You know, it's just such a liberating feeling of freedom and peace, and just to not be so reactive. And you know, I think a lot of that came from my dad too. He was my closest friend in the world. You know, I lost him 3 years ago.
I know.
Dealt with several losses in sobriety: Smoking Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali, and my father. And you know, because of this incredible Bridge Back to Life fellowship, I got to hold Smoking Joe Frazier's hand for an hour in the hospital a month before he passed, tell him how much I loved him, rubbed his head, told him not just what he meant to the world, but what he meant to me and the Prince family and my business and personally. And, you know, Muhammad Ali, I was at his funeral sober. Same with Smoking Joe. I actually took Muhammad and his wife Lonnie and got to sit with them and escort them there. And, you know, toughest loss of it all was my dad. And 81 years old, had an aortic aneurysm, and 32 days later he was gone. But on that 31st day, Hulk Hogan, who's one of my closest friends in the world and clients, told me I need to get a moment with him alone, and I got to ask him if he wants to keep fighting, because he had that blessing with his own dad, and it was something he'll never forget.
Wow.
He's like, brother, because you've been giving a blessing. I'll never forget this, because you've been giving a blessing, and in turn, God has made you a blessing to others. He goes, go get that blessing again with your father and ask him. And I remember sitting in my driveway at my house in tears, and I told my then fiance Priscilla that I need to go, and she goes, I agree, and got to hold my dad's hand and rub his head. I was up against, you know, the hospital bed, and he was breathing heavy, and I just said, you know, Dad, you tell me what you want to do. If God's going to tell you you're going to be 75%, it might be worth fighting. But anything less than that, you've been a warrior. I understand if it's time to go. You tell me, because I'm in the best place I've ever been. I said, you got to have a sober son for 8.5 years. Multiple fishing trips. Sober conversations. I said, you got to see the real me. And I'll take care of Mom and Stacy, and business is amazing. And he turned his head and he looked back, and it had to be the hardest thing he ever do. I think I saw my dad cry 3 times in my life with tears in his eyes and said, I'm ready to die. And I said, I get it. I said, we'll speak to hospice people tomorrow. But I think I tell you something right now.
Wow.
While you're up there with Muhammad and Joe and Grandma and Grandpa and Uncle Joe and Alan, I said, your son's going to touch the world, having nothing to do with the sports agency and entertainment agency business. I said, my real calling is going to be giving this gift away to people. Can actually wind up in recovery enjoying the blessing that we've had of 8.5 years sober, because I know too many people that lost loved ones when they were out there. And he had such a smile on his face. And then all these miracles, these God-managed coincidences, I call them GMCs, started happening. I got a call from that same Turning Point a couple months later that they wanted to honor me with the Hope and Recovery Award. Would I be okay speaking in front of 800 people? I never did a speech in my life. I said, of course. I hired one of the best speech coaches in New York City, my boy Jeffrey Davis, who's incredible. And he did things to me that I didn't think I was humanly possible in front of audiences of 4,000 or 5,000. My boy John Albino, who's my life coach, personal trainer, NLP coach, as we've talked about when we met, you know, he put me into these subconscious trances to get me to a space where when I'm up there, I feel like I'm talking to just a person. And I could speak to you like I put me in front of Wembley Stadium right now, 100,000 people.
NLP is incredible.
I would actually be more excited for that, the way my brain is programmed, than I would be for a smaller audience. Because I feel God working through me. I know at that moment when I give my 17, 18-minute presentation, it's not me. And I blew it out. I mean, I rehearsed. I watched myself in the mirror. I was driving to the gym every day, reciting it. I took 20-plus different lessons. And by the time I did it, friends, loved ones, people I knew since I was a little kid, they were so blown away because I had no notes. I didn't need them. That's not easy for 17 or 18 minutes without stuttering. And
absolutely.
When I was done, I got a standing ovation, and about 15 people in that room, their lives were changed. There were so many coming over to me with tears in their eyes, and that's when I found my calling. And little I know, the next day, sponsor Steve would call me and say, "You're not going to believe this." I said, "What?" He goes, "Dr. Oz just personally called Turning Point. Apparently one of his producers follows you on Facebook and saw your speech on Facebook Live. They want you on the show tomorrow with Darryl Strawberry." I was like, "Are you kidding?" He goes, "Nope." Wound up on Dr. Oz. 2 weeks after Dr. Oz, because that thing was on my Facebook, Donald Trump, and now President Trump's executive assistant, who I knew for years when I did business with Donald, when he was a TV personality on Celebrity Apprentice, a bunch of my clients were on there. She called me and said, "Mr. Trump's administration saw your Dr. Oz appearance, and I just watched your speech. I had no idea how affected you were by the opiate epidemic, and God bless you in your testimony. Would you be okay if I gave his top executive your number, because they want you to come to the White House over the next couple of weeks and help them get your message out to schools and to businesses and colleges? Like, it'd be an honor." Wound up in the White House 3 weeks later. And then December of 2017, I met this woman on Facebook, Anna David, who became my publisher. We just made a lunch date at her office to catch up and see if we can find some synergy. And I had no idea she was in recovery for 15 or 16 years. And just like I'm talking to you, I was talking to her. And she goes, "I've never heard somebody quite so passionate with such energy and so openness and honesty. And your life and business has been beyond spectacular. It's unbelievable how you gotten to this point." She goes, "Would you be interested in writing a book?" I was like, "Not about the business. I was like, it's just not my personality anymore. I checked my ego at the door a long, long time ago." She goes, "I've got it. If you write about stories in the business when you were high, situations that happened, it's more about you rather than telling about stuff about your clients that you want to keep personal. But if you talk about the hell of addiction to the beauty of spiritual recovery, now you can help change lives and save lives." And we started crying. We both knew we were onto something. I'm like, "That's it." She goes, "I'm going to get a publishing deal for you." And 3 weeks later, I was in Australia, and she messaged me, "You got to call me." And she goes, it was literally, it could have been like a bidding war. She goes, we're going to do this. We're going to roll this out probably in April or May, start doing pre-orders. I need you to get one of your clients to make it go mainstream to write the forward."
Incredible.
And there was no other choice but Magic Johnson. And I was with him that January 2018 in Miami, and in his hotel suite. And you just saw how happy I was, even though Dad passed away 10 months earlier. asked me how I was doing. We spent so much personal time talking about family. And I call him Urban. I call him by his real name. It's Urban. I got some exciting news. I signed a deal to publish my memoir. He goes, oh, man, I'm so proud of you. What's it going to be about mostly? And I said, well, it's going to be about the age in life and, entrepreneurship, teenager, but mostly it's going to have a focus on the hell of my hidden opiate addiction and how I came through the other side. And he was so friggin' excited. He's like, baby boy, you are going to change and save and touch so many lives with this book. He goes, this is going to break records. It's going to be a bestseller. He goes, this is going to be a staple in that world, and I'm so proud of you. And, even whatever I was then, 10 years sober, I was a little bit nervous. My hands were sweating, and I said, I got to ask you something. Would you do the honor of writing the forward? Because I know you don't do them often. I think the last one he did was for Larry Bird. And he looked at me and said, man, are you kidding? I would be so offended if you didn't ask me to write the forward. Of course I will.
Amazing.
And that was a game changer, because in the next couple of months, with him as the writing the forward and his name on the cover, Mark Cuban, Lakers owner Jeannie Buss, Dr. Drew, Hulk Dennis, so many clients all gave the most incredible testimonies about my journey. And then when the book came out, it was a whole nother level. Every single one of them posted it to millions and millions and millions and millions of followers. And Chris Cuomo, who I'm praying for right now, is a dear friend, and that was the first show I did. It was Chris Cuomo, 150 countries. And then there was extra, Tucker Carlson. I mean, the list just goes on. The timing of it with the opiate epidemic was just absolutely
I was just going to say that. Exactly. It was so relevant, and it's still so relevant, unfortunately. I mean, I have to say, unfortunately, it's still such a massive issue, but your timing, it was right on point. It's amazing to me that, you had your awakening and it stayed with you. And also, it's like the universe started literally blessing you. God was like blessing you with gifts once you started to take care of yourself better again. And I think that's such a huge message, that when we start to love ourselves and be healthy and take care of ourselves after doing so much self-destructive, activity and behaviors on our bodies or our mind, soul, the universe gives us, it opens doors, it gives us gifts. And I feel like that's huge.
I'll take it a step further. Further.
Please
that's
do.
Good. That gets you 50% of the way there. Mm-hmm. The other 50% is be kind, be caring, be thoughtful, be selfless and not selfish. Then you watch the explosive blessings come into your life that you can never imagine would ever happen. Because
Absolutely.
getting sober and taking care of you is good. I know why. Look, it's a little bit embarrassing to say our business is booming right now with this pandemic. I got people that do $200-300 million a year in business that are out of business right now. We immediately within 4 days made a shift and started doing Zoom Q&A chats with different celebrities, musicians, athletes that we represent, with corporations that still want to inspire their staff, paid interviews, paid social media. All these things started happening. And my business managers and accountant called me last week, and they were like, we're not surprised. I don't do what I do to get paid back. But Magic said it to me on his jet on the way to a speaking engagement about 7-8 months ago. He goes, when you give the way you give, he goes, trust me, God marks you down, and he has to pay you back tenfold so you can take care of other people. And, I recently started my Aiming High Foundation in December, and it's a total nonprofit. All the money we're raising, we're using to give treatment to people that need it. And I'm a rep all properties in 5 different states. That's my life. My business, super agent stuff, it's all bullshit. I don't even like hearing it. I work for very special people. I think I have a special talent from representing special talent. That's where it stops.
That's beautiful, though. At what point did you feel like, okay, I have to start giving back? How many years into your recovery? I know the passing of your father was kind of a definite turning point where you did tell him that you were going to do that. But at what point in your recovery did you feel that inner drive to help others give back on the level
Probably a
that...
couple of years earlier, in 2015, I was honored at the New Jersey Mental Health Association Opiate Epidemic Month, and I spoke in front of 400 people, and looking back on it now, the speech was probably horrible because I probably spoke like I was a speaker in the recovery room, but I noticed the impact of just everyday people when I got off the stage and I got the award and I was interviewed on the red carpet, and this has nothing to do with me as, CEO of Prince Marketing Group, and it's everything to do with my personal journey. And wow, the impact is just unbelievable how people are moved. I never ever expected this, and it made me feel good. It made me, because of money, not because of cars, not because of beautiful women, not because of the big house with an elevator and all the freaking toys that I thought, and the $40,000 Rolex and the freaking black Amex card. No, this made me feel good because of me. For the first time in my life, that people aren't judging me. They're not saying, oh, because he's Hulk Hogan and Magic Johnson and Ric Flair's guy, Carmen Electra. It had nothing to do with that. It was my message, and I just needed more of it. And then I became addicted to that because it was a healthy addiction. I needed to do the road work on the inside of me and my soul and get through those barriers of why I wound up in a space that I wound up. I mean, I'm always doing self-improvement. Even I spoke about this. I did a pure NLP session in September with my guy John about my relationships, with women and wanting to evolve and be better. And we spoke about that when I saw you. And
we did. There's
always ways you can tap into your core and realize why something went wrong, why you behave a certain way, why, there's a destructive pattern in any aspect of your life. And I want to be accountable with all of it. I want to be accountable with every single bit of it and continue to grow into the person I was always meant to be. It's a never-ending job. My problem is if I come across individuals or people in my life, and I got clients, not to mention names, I've got friends, there's female friends, there's guy friends that don't live that life. And that's not my problem. If they don't gravitate to my way of living, and I spiritually outgrow people, I don't care who it is, I'm done,
Right.
Because I'm not going to let somebody's energy and negative way of living, and you know me, I'm patient. I've got a threshold. I can put up for it for a little while. But I've got it with a client. There's a handful of people that if I'm not feeling threatened that my spiritual energy is being taken from your negative, derogatory, self-destructive way of life, I can hang in there. But the minute I feel like you're going to bring me to your way of living a lot quicker than mine, it's over.
Of course, there's boundaries, instant boundaries.
No.
That's what we have to learn.
I got to protect that no matter who the person is.
You do, yes. We're very similar in that way. We're self-reflective, but we also, you got to analyze who's in your life, who's affecting you, and how are they affecting you. So.
Yeah, that's it. And I'm not going to say I don't have the moments. I have them every week with certain people. But like I said, you got to, sometimes, you see that glimmer of hope. I've got it with guys, a couple of guys that I've worked with and some other people. And you see that glimmer of hope. And obviously, you know what? I got that change in perspective. I got that perception that allows me to see with the clearer view through these eyeballs and think with my heart and my brain that, you know what? It's not a bad person.
Right.
They're confused. That these people are confused. I've seen them do this. I saw my boy do this at one point. I saw this girl do, and I always have to remind myself and stay in that space because, look, like I said, I can play complete a-hole, for the lack of better words, if I want to be. But I got to stay away from that place. I have a freaking. My sponsor Steve said he goes, "You have an ego the size of New Jersey," and
I haven't seen that.
But yeah, you have it because I checked it. His son, my spiritual brother Dan Rogers, who's Kenny Rogers' nephew, he just lost his uncle 3 weeks ago. He gave me the lesson 5 years ago. He goes, "This is an ego crushing fellowship," and he's got 33 years. He goes, you keep that ego crushed because you're going to do just fine and you're going to really help change and save lives. So that's why I kind of struggle when, I'll do certain podcast business ones and they say, oh, we have a legend. We have somebody that made it to the top of the industry. Super. I don't want to hear that. I want you to say we have a spiritual guru. We have somebody that is helping to change and save lives. And that's what gets me going. That's using his testimony. His test became his testimony.
Yes. Well, for me, you're the guru because I didn't meet you under the other circumstances. But I respect and I think it's amazing what you've accomplished. But I met you already humble, recovered, giving back. And you actually inspired me in one phone call about some things that I've been through. And, you remember that conversation.
I remember.
Amazing
right. Call. Amazing
And
call.
look what I'm doing now.
It's incredible. You're giving it back. You're paying it forward.
But you triggered like a massive amount of that. You were probably the first trigger. You inspired me in a major, major way. So look at how many lives you're changing. How has it affected some of the people that you do work with? Has it lifted them out of some of their own problems as well?
It has. I'm not going to say I had a lot to do with it. Charlie Sheena's 2.5 years sober. Went to his place a month and a half ago. He looks great. Dennis has struggled on and off, but he's put together some lengthy time with his alcoholism and thanks me, and I thank him. And that's a beautiful thing to know that these guys at certain points, it could have been something I said or the way that I live, or we say it's based on attraction, not promotion. And that's pretty badass. A couple of those guys can really get it together. And it's amazing. Carmen Electra and I speak for an hour at a time, just laughing constantly. Denise Richards. I mean, we have talks about, Carmen and I, it's literally 99% about life. And she just loves my energy, and I make her laugh. And we hang up the phone. It's I love you, babe. It's unbelievable. I mean, the long text is I'm struggling. Can you call me if she has an off day? Chevy Chase. We had this Q&A tour all last year. Obviously, they're being suspended right now. And for him, who people have said so much about, which isn't true. He's got a beautiful heart. He's an amazing guy. I mean, like any aging older actor, you have your moments. And what he said to me about my journey, my recovery is just incredible, absolutely incredible.
What did he say?
They're all cheering for it. I mean, Jeannie Buss, I had her in a commercial. Was powerful woman in LA, the owner of the Lakers. I had her in a commercial a couple months ago. You probably saw my post on Instagram, and I just said it from the heart. She was so moved by it, she reposted it with the whole thing about me and how much she admires me and respects me and what I'm doing.
Oh, wow. Amazing. I love it. So it's been a ripple effect throughout your life in every area. It's amazing.
Every area. Yep, every area.
So before
with that, I have a
I know.
Zoom
I know that
meeting
you do.
coming up. They're texting me to do a visual check in about a minute.
I was just going to say, I know you have to go, but I was just going to ask you one last question. What's next? What's next for you?
What's next is, like I said, it's aiminghighfoundation.org. If anybody, it's near and dear to them, they got some extra resources. It's going to a great cause.
Excellent.
Keynote speaking, I love doing it. They can go to officialdarrenprince.com. It's not about the money. Again, I do a lot pro bono. People can make donations. And Aiming High book. I mean, it's still out there and it's doing amazing. And I send them out for free. So I literally sent out 45 free copies in the past 2 weeks to people. Hardcover, not cheap ones, hardcover. So if somebody wants to find me on Instagram at agent_DP and just message us your email and your address, we'll ship you a free copy.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today, taking the time. I know you're super busy, but let's chat soon. And thanks so much again, once again.
Thanks,
Talk to you
Jess.
soon.
You got
Bye.
It. Bye-bye.
Hey, guys. So Yuri will be calling in soon. We're going to just take about a 5-minute break.